play to learn, not to win. It's a pretty common phrase you hear a lot in any competitive space. And what does this mean? Play to learn, not to win. I want to come in here and I want to win. I feel like nobody hops onto a game or does anything with the plan or the goal. I would say the goal being failure. To goal to succeed, to win, to feel good. You see that victory screen, it gets your blood pumping. You're on a 20-game win streak. You're loving life. You're feeling your best. You're feeling your ultimate self, and you want more of it. You want more and more and more. But playing to win is honestly because it's usually a really finite goal. It has its limited productive capability. If I had to think of what it looks like to play to win, I would say doing whatever it takes to get to W in each and every scenario. It doesn't mean if you're like abusing the same gimmick 10 times in a row, trying to annoy somebody and frustrate them because they don't know a matchup or don't know a situation. You're just trying to push whatever you can to get that W. What else does playing to win look like? Not sharing information, secret tech. The reason why I say not sharing information, secret tech is because if you keep your opponent ignorant, if you keep them, this specifically, if you keep them not understanding the situation, then you're going to have a very inherent advantage. And honestly, things are a lot easier than they used to be today. When I started playing fighting games, when people started playing fighting games forever ago, there weren't no wiki guides. You got like a GameStop, Capcom guide in the magazine to show you how to do inputs. Or it would be like an inputs on like an arcade cabinet, right? Or it would be information. I heard you gotta do the secret input. This is a secret code for like the Mortal Kombat or something like that, right? Let's say a similar situation where there's a mix-up, right? And the mix-up can go high or low. Now, what your opponent doesn't know is the high option only does like 10% damage, and the low option does 40% damage. So the best thing to do would be block low, so you eat the smaller situation. If you do get hit, you would have to get hit 4 times for the 10% damage overhead between the 40% damage low conversion. Understanding that concept in itself will let you understand that, hey, block low, lower risk. Is it always block? No. Sometimes you got to block high, right? You can't just eat damage constantly. Understanding little situations like that and explaining to people and breaking it down can teach them to evolve around your strategy. And when you're not teaching people and not helping them evolve, especially if somebody you're interacting with constantly, then they're going to have bad habits. And exploiting their bad habits is great. But what do you do when you run into somebody who doesn't have that bad habit, that understands their situation? You're going to end up limiting your ability to adapt. Not recognizing weakness. I actually like this one. Yeah, I'll put this one down there. Not understanding your weaknesses. Every player has flaws. Every player has things they're not good at or they're not 100% at. I would say for me personally, I really like the ground game. With every character I play, they focus on the ground game. So I like characters that play footsies that usually have strong horizontal tools. Think about Giovanna, far heavy, right? Giovanna's standing heavy, right? Really far reaching horizontal ground poke. The character doesn't have great anti-airs though, so she's not fantastic in that, but that's something that I am willing to compensate for. I'm willing to have a character that has strong buttons and weak anti-airs. So it's going to force me to have the anti-air better, which I know I'm not good at. People jumping on me all day, people air dash on me all day. So I eventually catch on, get an air throw, sure. Reacting to jumps is not something that I'm as strong at as playing the ground game. That's why I focus more on like 2D with Giovanna, or pokes with Giovanna, or making reads to get in and then start to strike throw game. So I understand that, hey, I'm not strong with anti-airing. Let me play a character that forces ground control a lot of the times and is excellent at ground control, so I don't have to deal with that scenario. But not understanding your weaknesses can go in a lot of different ways. Because when you're playing people and you're constantly winning, which could be a bad thing. If you're like winning most of the time you play, then you're probably not playing a large enough group of players. There's always going to be somebody who has a play style that either naturally beats yours and is more of the antithesis of the way you play, or a play style that makes you uncomfortable. Not so much that you're even winning or losing, but you have an uncomfortable feeling from playing them because they don't let you run the game you want. They don't let you play the way you want to. And you have to step outside your comfort zones to deal with that. And understanding your weaknesses is important because you're going to have weaknesses. But the thing is, you can't do everything at once. So you have to understand the risk and reward of the decision you're making and how to augment that and be flexible. Because you're going to get hit, you're going to lose. But the point is understanding your weaknesses so you know how to adapt. In fact, this one is probably the one that you see the most. Never take responsibility. It's your responsibility what character you play. It's your responsibility depending on a certain game like Soul Calibur or Smash or whatever, or like Call of Duty. What map you're playing on, it's your responsibility to understand what you need to do to win. I feel like a lot of times this comes out not only in losing, but bad sportsmanship. You're playing to win. Your goal is to succeed by saying, I won it and I'm the greatest, cheated me, or to use some unfair tactic, or they're using some unfair character. And I can do this too. Everybody does this. It's a very common thing, you know, to just not take responsibility for when you lose, and also not respecting the other player when you lose. I feel like one of the common ways this comes out, especially like on social media, right, is bad sportsmanship. The bad sportsmanship in any competitive scene is always going to be something that's problematic, gets a lot of attention, usually draws the crowd. Most players who play fighting games, who are strong players, or players particularly who go out and travel consistently, you might see them be toxic, you might see them be annoying and obnoxious, but they have this double thing going on. They can be toxic and complain about the character and complain about the matchup, but you know what? You're still gonna see them labbing to try to find problems, switching characters to try to get around those problems and understand what's going on and try to avoid that situation. Sometimes even playing a different game. Or maybe you might see somebody, you know, just wait it out and say, you know what, instead of just complaining about this pack, maybe I'll just wait till the next pack and then compete in the game. But either way, when you lose, you have to take responsibility. And the responsibility is not for anybody else. It's not even to be, you know, super respectful to everybody or be everybody's best friend or to look confident. It's just for you. The responsibility is for you so you can understand and learn and grow. And I feel like once you take responsibility for what happens in any part of your life, it makes it a lot easier for you to understand, hey, this is what I need to do to change. Without taking that responsibility, it's hard to admit when you're wrong and be able to change accordingly. So those are like 4 basic things. It could probably be a million more things. Those are 4 things I'm just thinking about right now. Playing to learn. Understand as much as you can. And you can't know everything. The reason I say this is because you can't know everything. There's always going to be some new tech or some new mix up or some new strategy or some new positioning or some new way of poking or processing a matchup. There's always going to be some new technology that you have to deal with, right? But try to understand as much as you can. Try to understand every situation. Doesn't just mean learning your character. It means learning the game. And the reason I say this in particular is because when you play a game, most of the time you're playing your character. You're playing your character the way you want to play to win. The problem with that is everybody else for the most part is doing that. Most players are doing that. So what happens if you see the game not as, for fighting games in particular, several different matchups all interacting in different ways. You see it as, this is my character, this is my perspective, and this is the like objective truth, right? And that's not reality. That's just your sense of self coming through, kind of your ego controlling what you think is real, what you think is reality, when it's really just your perspective. So understand as much as you can, try to understand different characters, different matchups, what it feels like, experience the game through different levels of play and different characters. And when I say different levels of play, for Guilty Gear to kind of have it locked out to where you have to play like floor 10 or Celestial at a certain point, but there's all different levels of play at Celestial. And I feel like you can understand game plans at a really basic level, at a really fundamental level. And I feel like a lot of times that gets written off, you know, because ever playing at the highest level of play and has the most fantastic maybe results or maybe the most fantastic prominence in the community is usually considered the right and objective truth. And by that I mean who's ever winning at that moment is the best player and it could do no wrong, and that's always how it is. But if you look at any game's lifespan, the best player usually changes throughout time. The best strategy usually changes without time through huge shifts. Even in games that don't get a patch, that are still the same stagnant game through 10, 20 years, the meta's still going to keep evolving and changing. Learning as much as you can and understanding that progression will help you out long term. And it's a lot easier when you see a game develop. Once you see a game develop and a meta develop, and you see all the different patches that can happen, people fall off, people switch to a different game, strategies become stronger or weaker, things are constantly evolving. And by learning as much as you can kind of evolve with them. Seeing other people's perspective. But seeing other people's perspective is immensely important. You need to understand how you feel and how you are and understand yourself. And you have to understand how your opponent feels and themselves, and then understand the game's engine and what's possible within the game's engine. I feel like those are the 3 things. I feel like, you know, you can break down the game into, okay, these characters and these play styles and this meta or these stages and these like overpower special moves and normals. But essentially, especially when you're fighting strong stronger players, you're fighting the player. So understanding that player, understanding their perspective and what they want to do will help you out tremendously, immensely in playing that player versus player matchup. And honestly, if you can play the player versus player matchup, a lot of times you won't even have to deal with the in-game character to character matchup. If you can understand how they like to move, when they're going to jump, what the point of their problem solving is. One thing you'll see, if you take any player and watch like a bunch of their matches, probably 10 matches in a row, you'll probably see that they have a really canned strategy. They have a particular way that they like to start the round. They have particular ways that they reach their win condition. And you'll probably see they probably have a similar win condition. It might be something more offense and kind of maul people and try to destroy them as quickly as possible, or waiting for opportunities for somebody to whiff something and then running in and then applying pressure. Or it might be something as wild as just like going and being as chaotic as possible and trying to force scrambles. So understand that person's perspective and kind of dismantling their game plan from understanding what their win condition is and making it as difficult as possible for them to reach it. Super, super important. It'll make your life so much easier. The best way to do that is probably watching people's matches as well. Match review to see people's patterns. This is something that comes up a lot. I talk about it once in a while. Watch your own matches, please, and watch other people's matches. There is so much that's so difficult to do when you're inside of a match. You're playing the match, right? You're playing the match. You're engaged in that scenario. You're trying to win. You're trying to learn. Everything you're doing to be constantly aware of it all throughout the match, because you're also engaged with interacting with another person. Stepping outside the match and watching your own matches and watching other people's matches, I feel like is way easier sometimes to identify problems in your game plan, understanding what typical patterns you fall into. If you make a certain streamlined decisions, let's say you're always bursting at the same point. When you're inside the left side of the corner, for some reason you like to DP more, or the right side of the corner, you might not. Maybe you're noticing that, hey, you feel more comfortable DPing or reversing and inputting that on one side rather than the other. It's just like little things like that that you'll see in your game plan once you watch your matches, and it'll reveal a lot of information about you that you probably didn't notice. Also, ask other people, match review and seeing people's patterns, because like literally there's so much that's going on that you're not going to be seeing. There's so many perspectives that you're not going to have. So if you can watch your own matches, have other people watch your matches, give you criticism, watch other people's matches and interact with players in that way, it'll just open up so many possibilities. Open self, information about you that both you and others know. Blind self, information about you that you know but others do know, that you don't know but others do know. Hidden self, information about you that you know but others don't know. And a known self, information about you that neither you nor others know. So we see like these 4 different kind of situations of knowing this and not knowing this. And it seems like a lot kind of confusing, but the basic concept is in only one of these squares do you and everybody else know everything about you. There's all the different sections of you knowing, but them not knowing, or them not knowing and you knowing, or neither of you knowing. So I'm just showing this to demonstrate that you can't know everything. You're not going to know everything, but you're going to need help from others, especially around your skill level, slightly above you, slightly below you, to understand and gain a new perspective. You can't do it on your own. I'm showing this just to show that you cannot do it on your own. So don't try to do it on your own. It's just going to be frustrating. It's going to end up being frustrating. You're going to hit a wall. You're not going to understand how to grow, and you're gonna limit yourself. And Daigo would talk about this. He will also watch his matches for several hours a day. And then watching your own matches, watching all the matches you play for those 2 hours and dealing with this frame trap from this character, I realized when I was playing other people, playing a slightly different character, I didn't understand their frame traps. I didn't understand how to escape in a scenario. And while I was able to beat them in neutral, I was able to knock them down and run my offense. Defensively, I had these weaknesses here. I think the easiest way anybody can do this for match review is see what scenarios you're constantly getting hit, and you just go into trainer mode and see if there's a way for you to avoid the situation. Flexibility and wickednesses and adaptability. The best thing you could always do is have the ability to adapt, because you have the ability to adapt, you have the ability to change to your scenario, push forward to be your best self. It's going to be conflict. It's going to arise situations where the answer is going to be immediately available and you're going to lose and it's going to feel bad. Sometimes you're going to lose and it could be a close set, a really close match, a really close scenario. Sometimes it's going to be a huge blow up. You're going to get completely completely outplayed, or sometimes you're gonna win like that. Sometimes you're gonna win and you just had a fortunate answer. Maybe you input the exact wrong thing, but ended up working out for you. But you got the right answer surprisingly the wrong way. Those situations happen. Those are the outliers. And you gotta just like accept that as a reality. You know, they're gonna be outliers where you feel like, oh man, I shouldn't have won that. Oh man, I shouldn't have lost that. Look, adaptability is the thing that you should always strive to be the best at. When I see this wheel, I think of like all the different strategies, all different types of players, all different types of expression, all the different types of ideas, all the things that are possible, right? Like I imagine that this circle is the game itself, and all these colors and all the different points within the colors express where anybody can be in it, right? And I feel like everybody has, you know, their own self that they want to express when they play. And I feel like the idea for me is you can be anywhere you want, and all these colors have things that complement them, things that oppose them, things that are so vastly different that they don't even feel like they're inside the same universe, right? But they're all part of the way that you can express yourself. Being as close to the center, the point where all these things mix and collide, this little tiny black dot, that's like the perfect balance between all these things. The problem is none of these are going to be the right answer all the time. All these different types of expression, all these different types of playing, all the different types of being, none of them are going to be the right answer all the time. So sometimes you're going to have to choose a little bit of yellow, a little bit of blue, a little bit of offense, a little bit of evasion defensively. All of these different things are all different. Incorporate so many different elements and so many different ideas and thoughts into your game plan, because you're gonna have to change. If you want to be consistent, if you want to be stable, if you want to have variety in your game plan, you're going to be able to be flexible and change. And just like all these colors, no color is right and wrong. There's no game plan is right or wrong. It's gonna get you 100% success rate all the time. So just remember, be flexible, be able to adapt, be able to change.